And so we will be talking about TDD, test-driven development. So this is one of the things that people often think of as kind of black magic, right? But it's not so bad. I personally love it. So TDD, so it's one approach when you start by first thinking about what is the thing that you actually want to deliver on a technical level, and then you start implementing this. So that's a way of working that will give you a design which is optimized for high quality, and it's optimized for evolvability. So that has an impact on design and architecture, and it has an impact on technical depth. So we're going to show this, and we're going to practice this, right? And the next step is I'm also giving you an overview about what BDD means. What's the behavior-driven development? What's that strange thing? That's one of my pet topics, the things I like most to talk about. And then what else do we have? So then the other aspect is the DevOps part, right? So DevOps, how can we deliver on a constant pace, right? So, and this, one of the learnings is that let's say the testing department joined a Scrum team. And it's the same thing with the operations department. The skills, or part of the skills of a DevOps team has to get into the Scrum team. So you see there are many skills that are needed and challenges, right? So we have a very high challenge for quality in such a team to make this really fly. It's not trivial, but from experience, so that all the teams that I have taught, that I helped to go from the traditional approach to the agile approach, I always tell them before the training, guys, some of you might hate me now because maybe you're going to a certain amount of pain, but afterwards, they never want to go back to their old ways. And that's something that over the years I have really, I can say that with firm conviction. Nobody wants to go back. It might happen that one or two quit their job. That also happens for many different reasons, right? But that's it, guys. So the thing is with Scrum, it allows you to inspect that. So the trust is you build this on things that you can see and check. It's not like, oh, I just believe you, but you show it. Now that's the thing. So whatever the team delivers, it will be open to scrutiny. And people will be like, mercilessly have a look at this and criticize this, right? So you have to create this transparency. This is one of the biggest challenges also, right? So that's a journey, yeah. So the team must be allowed to do what they need to do. So basically, the organization must create the conditions. And the key word here is self-management. So people often think like, oh, people, they don't know how to self-manage. I am the project manager, or I'm the team that I have to tell them how to do things. They just cannot do this. But this reminds me of one really fantastic experiment. Have you heard of the Marshmallow Challenge? Okay, so it's a very easy challenge, and it's about self-management. So what they did, they created groups of all different kinds of people. For example, managers. Then you have students, like business students, and then you have all you can think of, students, graduate students, even kindergarten students, you know, all of them. And the challenge is very simple. You have like 20 sticks of spaghetti. You have 1 meter of tape, you get some scissors, and you get a string of 1 meter. The challenge is, and a marshmallow. And the challenge is to build the highest tower that you can, the highest construction, right? Anyway, so you do it. You have to self-organize. And but there is a constraint, 18 minutes. So each team has to come up with that. So who do you think was best? Do you think it's the business whatever students, or is it the managers? Is it architects? Is it, what do you think? Or is it the programmers? Kids, yes. And that's totally astonishing. I mean, they don't know nothing about management, and they don't. If you take the business guys, you know what they do? They spend like 5 minutes discussing who does what and who is the boss, and they start like, yeah, the social management stuff, and then they forget they have to do the rest. And then very end they have the marshmallow, right? And then it crumbles down, and it's fantastic. If you have the opportunity to try this out, the thing is, kids, they don't think about, they just start building. They tinker and build, and then they try this, and whatever they create, it has a very organic look. It looks like animals. It's really fantastic. So just Google it, marshmallow challenge. So why do I tell this story? People think, oh, I have to be taught how to self-manage. Oh, that's bullshit. It's something we do naturally. But management has managed to take away of this natural way of working. This is the natural, let's say, it's hardwired in us. So whenever you start a team, but this is more like a Scrum Master thing now, right? So you have to create the environment where they are allowed to actually self-organize. And you don't have to teach this. You say, that's the rules, you can do whatever you want. And whenever they lose the fear, right? Like, oh, I cannot do this as a rule, like management will hit me or whatever. No, we can try this out. Building that trust, it happens naturally. I mean, look, for example, if you go to a conference and there are all the chairs, right? And you are the first person. When people start getting into that room, where will they sit? They will self-organize. They will just sit wherever they want. So that's basically it's the easy part. But we as Scrum Master, whenever we're on that Scrum Master role, we have to understand these dynamics. That's easy, right? You need the conditions. If you don't have the conditions, you cannot, right? So yeah, they need a space where they know this is where you are organized and you are responsible for the results. You need a goal. And in Scrum, we have each sprint, we have a goal. That's the sprint goal. And you can rally around that goal. And so there are multiple aspects like motivation. So if you want to have a functional team, they need to know why they're doing this. And Scrum helps us with that, because each review, they're going to face the music. They're going to face the clients. They know for whom they're building the thing. We are not anymore a little cog in a machine. No, we are responsible for the product, right? And so Scrum plays really nicely in our psychology. We're doing small steps. We don't have this big plan that's like, oh, never, well, it's a big, no. We have our small Scrum backlog, a sprint back. We have this small bucket. And it's like, it's 2 weeks, so we can understand how much we can do. We have to be able to wrap our head around the work that we're going to do. And this is why we need to have small steps. And then we can grasp it. So it's about understanding what's the best team size. And Scrum teams are small teams, right? And this is one part. So as a Scrum developer, we have this other thing. We have to understand, we have to learn to, that the Scrum values, something we also talk about. We have to be used to, first of all, to be really collaborative. We have to learn this. It takes a little bit of time, right? And collaboration, you need trust for that to work. But given these conditions, will come naturally. And as Scrum Master, you will be accompanying that team on that journey, right? And I can say also from personal experience of working in a Scrum team, if it's really going well, it's really something very satisfying, right? So I love teaching it, and I love using it. That reminds me of sometimes when we have this small workshop, maybe a refinement session, and we are analyzing a problem. And I was once a Scrum Master for such a team, and I was just watching that team thinking together. And it was really an interesting thing, like, because what's our mission? We want to turn like the 5, 6, 7 brains, we want to turn it in one big brain. That's what we want to do. We want to create kind of this collective intelligence. And I was listening to the conversation. It was like that. One had an idea, and he bounced an idea. He just threw an idea into the room. It's like ping pong ball. And then someone caught that idea and said, yeah, but if you can do this, but then would have that problem. And so he threw the ball again, and someone else picked it up, said, yes, but then we can do this. And how about that? And so it was like, was an ongoing ping pong. That was really interesting to see. And so the thing is, so as Scrum Masters, but I'm going to again talk about Scrum Master role, right? But so we as developers, we have by learning, creating rapport and understand, and getting to know our colleagues, we start, we have this bonding, right? And you also, you as a team, you create things that you wouldn't have been able to create by yourself. And there's another thing. One of my stories is that once there was a team, and I went on vacation, and when I came back from vacation, they had created an app. And it was here in Brazil, there's a problem with security. So they were working in a house, and whenever a developer came and wanted to be buzzed in, you had to ring the bell, and someone has to come to the door, open the door, check if it's really the right person, you can get in and all that. And it was really annoying, that whole thing. And they developed an app. So whoever wanted to go to that door just buzzed yourself in with your own app. And it was a fantastic small thing. And I asked them, who invented that? Who had the idea? And the thing is, they couldn't really say whose idea it was. It was kind of a distributed idea. Someone had kind of an idea. Someone else took that idea, modified it a little bit, and they kind of built this. So that was a collective thing. That's interesting, This is the kind of things that happen in Scrum teams. So I've met Scrum Masters who couldn't code at all and were fantastic Scrum Masters. And I have met Scrum Masters who have technical knowledge, and that can be a problem. As a Scrum Master, your job is to help the team to develop, become a better team. You're not there to do their job. So that's a trap. That's a big trap many Scrum Masters fall into. I fell into that one. Okay, let's see it. So we have 2 questions here. How can a Scrum Master ensure that the stories are correctly sized? So the sizing. The thing is, with sizing, there is no correct way of sizing, right? Because sizing basically means I want to predict how complicated or not a work item is. The thing is, with the kind of work that we are doing in Scrum, it's the complex kind of work. It's innovation work, right? You don't know exactly what's going to happen. So your estimations will be wrong. And that's the problem, that if you come from a management mindset, you want to plan all these things, but you cannot, because you cannot predict, you cannot plan what you don't know. So that's not wrong. And if the team doesn't deliver the sprint goal, that means that's then something for you to reflect upon with your team. So, and if you pressure your team, you force them to build up technical debt. So the thing is, if you have a deadline, so the mindset of Agile planning, or let's say, it's called also the empirical way of planning, is that you look at your real velocity. So when you say, oh, we planned 10 items, but we only delivered 7. So what should happen next sprint? Should they plan again for 10 items or should they plan for 7? What's your opinion?
7.
Right. And so if you proceed that way, the team will find their own real velocity. And then you can use this information to true up your plan. But this is a product owner problem, basically. The developers, they just need to be honest and respect their definition of done. It's a definition of done, the whole Scrum team. Respect the Scrum team's definition of done, the quality level of your team. And then you have to adapt your plan accordingly. And here again, we're touching upon the aspects of trust, right? So product owner must trust the developers that they are being honest with estimations, right? And so the Scrum team must be trusted also by the organization. And so this is very much an aspect that is discussed in the Scrum Master training, right? But this, I mean, this is, we're talking about this in the training too. So this is really about handling complexity, because complexity means that you cannot perfectly plan. And if you don't accept that, and management often does not accept that, because they have the real understanding of what complexity means. They think, oh, just plan better next time, plan it correctly. There is no correct plan in Agile because you cannot build that plan with things that you don't know. I mean, if you are programmers and you say, okay, we need a new version of that library. If you have never used it, there might be a bug. And if it's an external library, you don't know it. And you will discover it only when you actually use it. And this is not plannable. But change is also not plannable. COVID has never been planned, but it messed up so many plans. And this is really the mindset shift. So you need to change the way of planning. So instead of saying, I want this scope done to that deadline, you have to say, if that's the deadline, the question is, how much scope can we actually get done? So it's just turning it around. And that means that maybe you don't get everything, but if you have a clever product owner, you will get the important stuff first. And maybe the less important stuff later. So that means, yeah, the way of managing your work or planning your work, it's really different. First of all, not all teams necessarily are the same kind of teams. So even if you're scaling, if you have like multiple, you think, okay, we just multiply the number of Scrum teams. But the thing is, this is a little bit naive because certain types, not all the certain type of work is the same. You have some type of work is more like supportive team. It's like more like support work. So you can use Scrum for that, but you will not have the same kind of commitments. So you can combine it with waterfall teams, because you can even, one approach is to make people more comfortable with Scrum, even if it's a waterfall team, is you say, okay, you have a 1 month project and see how you can get this done. So you can arrange like these meeting points. Okay, you have, think what you can do with your team in 1 month. And they will do it the way they can do, whatever. And then if that works, then you can slowly start making that month smaller, right? And that's kind of a way of starting to think in an agile way. As an agile coach or scrum master who is catalyzing these changes in an organization. So the first job is to create the awareness of why they want to have Scrum. Because if they don't have this understanding, it's just a fad. It's just like, oh, it's cool. So generally, companies that are troubled and they need to cut whatever, they need to gain market share. They have to be quicker. They need to be more agile. They have a good motivation. And there's a saying, I don't know exactly, was it Peter Drucker who said, you don't have to change because survival is not mandatory. And you see this in certain industries who had this protection, these entry barriers, very high, like the financial institutions. And this changed. And now they have to adapt. Mm-hmm. Now with the fintechs eating away at their market share, and they will have to change, and they are changing. So that's the thing. Understand why you want to have Scrum. You never do Scrum just because of Scrum. That will not work because they have a certain pain level here. So train them, and they have to build the trust. So this is it's generally it's certain things take really long to make it happen. So you might be in a really tough spot now, but a couple of years, and this can take years, this might change, because the whole thing has to have a real benefit. If it hasn't, it will not survive. It will just not work. I mean, nimble, the advantages that you have with agility, if you really use it, it's really have to be nimble on the market, to be business-like agile. It means that you can react to change on the market very quickly. So instead of having one release per year, imagine you can have 10 releases per year. The difference that makes, you can react to these small changes, and the more you can do that, the better. And yes, so I've seen so many. Scaling it's difficult, because there's the other thing. And this is something also that I teach in my classes. You need to understand the culture that is necessary for that. Scrum has two parts. You have the mechanics, and this is the easy part because you can see it. We do the stickies, this and that. We just do the same thing, and then it will work. But it's not the case, because you have the invisible part, which is the supporting culture. We're talking about values. We're talking about mindset and beliefs, right? So mindset means, so for example, the typical mindset, a project manager has this plan-based mindset. And it's really ingrained because she or he has been trained. That's your plan, and you will be held accountable to that plan. So you have to make your plan waterproof, and you have to stick to that plan. It's like, and that's part of the PMI stuff. That's like, and you start seeing the whole world in plans. That's a plan, that's a plan, that's all plans. So that's really, it's like a mindset is kind of like glasses that you see the world through it. And so what's the agile mindset? So the agile mindset believes in complexity. Basically means, well, there are certain things that you just cannot plan. It's too complex for that. And so there are things which are not complex. So you stick with traditional management. You don't have to use Scrum for everything. The more complex your problem is, the more complex your product is, the more innovative your product is, the more volatile your environment is, the more Scrum makes sense. You know, when I talked about this tipping point of pain, so when you have this change that you have to incorporate in your plan and you have a change request, that's painful. That's painful for both sides. For developers, they hate it when they have to throw away their work, and project managers hate to redo their plans, waste. So if it gets too much, then they will have to change the way they work. That's what happens, right? It's like change the work or change your work. And it's always that choice, right? Good Scrum Masters are always sought after. So why 5 sprints? Right, it's step in the right direction. And many colleagues, generally we Agilists, we hate safe, right? You can say that safely, but many see this as I mean, each scaling framework should only be seen as a starting point. And this is something that we teach in our advanced Scrum Masterclass, is that can, of course, use this jumpstart thing with, oh, we have yes, this framework, and why should that framework be the best? And it's kind of a little bit of contradiction in terms, because creating such an organization, it's a socio-technical thing that you're creating. That's complex. So how can you create something complex with one big plan? That's a contradiction. So I am in favor of an organic approach. So, and back to SAFe, you can use it as a starting point, but then you should, as a real agilist, inspect how it's working and tinker with it. I have tried out less, and I'm very sympathetic to less. I like it very much. But I also like certain elements of Scrum at Scale. So why not mix it? The thing is, you need certain, let's say, agile maturity really to do these kind of things. You have these basic principles that you cannot, let's say, disrespect. So you have to be those basic principles: inspection, adaptation, and transparency. Like this is like the core of all of it. But if you look at this, I mean, it's a complex beast. It introduces quite some other problems. So yes, it's a start, but for example, you have to, there's so many different roles. And so the traditional organization, what will they do? They will hire people for each of these roles. And then you are stuck with these people. And then it's kind of, what should we do now? We have this, whatever, people for one train. And that basically means, well, now we need to train for that. Like and if you go a little more agile, I would say, oh, we don't need this train. We'll extinguish that train. But yeah, but now you have a guy standing around. So what do we do with that guy? And maybe a quick question. There was this question, QA, right? So QA guys, business analysts guys, they will all join a Scrum team, not as a role, but someone who brings skills that are needed to the team. So business analysis are interesting skills that certain teams might want to have, right? For example, if you go the behavior-driven way, if you want to do some kind of specification, that's something for you. And QA people generally turn into kind of a testing quality person in the team, or a QA person might become a product owner. But that's a huge step. So that's it's a path that you can go, right? So let's get connected. That was a pleasure, and hope to see you soon.